But that's going on now for maybe 3 weeks.
Really?
So I didn't know if you'd heard or if there was, but
I could have,
I thought it was strange that there were only 2 of them showing up.
right? Yeah, I don't know what the story is, but
Okay, yeah,
I'm curious now.
yeah, because
Yeah.
Brule is the 3rd one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, he could have resigned or,
well, I hadn't seen that,
yeah,
so I wondered if he was sick.
no, I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know, but I will find out.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
because I thought it was real strange.
yeah. Elaine will not be here today, Ann.
We don't have to get on.
Thank you.
Oh, sir.
All right, it's 10 o'clock. Thank you for coming. We'll call this meeting to order, and if you'd all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you again for coming. It is August 12th, 2013. This is the Broadwater County Commissioners meeting. And just a couple of reminders, we are on YouTube. We also have these meetings recorded. So if, when you do want to speak, you state your full name and be recognized by the chair. Also, the agenda was revised this past week. It was posted as legally required in 3 public places. But what we added was a couple of afternoon appointments with Kyle Hopstead from the Hospital Prescription Drug Plan Support and appoint an interim DES coordinator. We'll be discussing that as well. So with that, we will start with 10 o'clock, the Commissioner's Community Update. Any updates, Franklin?
No, I have any this week.
Okay, couple of you here attended, along with myself, the JLUIS community meeting that was Wednesday. JLUIS is Joint Land Use Study, and that is with Lewis and Clark County, and it is our Limestones training area with the National Guard, as well as Fort Harrison. It's an 18-month study to kind of bring the parties together and see how we can best accommodate everybody's individual interests. There were a couple of small meetings during the week with that, and then Wednesday night was the community meeting. There'll be 3. That was number 1. So that was it for me. We're about 13 minutes from our next appointment. So if there's nothing else, Franklin, we'll go ahead and get started on some mail.
Okay.
First off, we have claims. These are from fiscal year 13. Here's a copy for you, Ann. The amount is $8,618.02, and these are the claims that we approved last week.
Right.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
All
Motion
right.
made, I didn't put what's the amount there, read the amount off there, here, the amount is, $8,618.02.
Yeah, I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to pay the approved claims of 6/30/2013 in the amount of $8,618.02. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carries. I should start with minutes. We take care of last week first. These are the minutes from August 5th. They were sent to you earlier this week, Tuesday if I'm not mistaken.
August 5th.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of August 5, 2013. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carries. Thanks, Ann. We have claims. This is for the new fiscal year, date of 8/6/2013, in the amount of $36,210.95. And those are also the claims that we went over last week.
I'll move to pay claim 1008, he says, and the amount of $36,210.95.
I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to pay the approved claims of 8/6/2013 in the amount of $36,210.95. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, we have a grant for WIC, and I made copies of all these and put them in your mailbox. This is a grant that is through 2019, started in 2012. We actually approve each year individually, so this is for fiscal year 14.
Motion for this.
Mhm.
Let's see. Okay, I'll make a motion, we pay, or go ahead with this, it's, with contract 2013 to 2014. I don't know what the number, is it?
It's the fiscal year 14
Yeah.
portion of the grant.
And it's, is this the number you want to add, a CFDA number 10.557?
Yeah, second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to approve the WIC grant for fiscal year 14. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carries.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman, Cheryl Campbell, what's the amount of that grant?
Just for the 1 year or for the entire portion?
Just the 1 year.
The total budget is $41,683. And WIC is for women, infants, and children, and it's for their health. And that's operated with the public Health Office under Linda Campbell. Okay, we have also something we addressed last week. I didn't make another copy of the title page for you, but I'll give you this. It's the balance of the $44,000 grant that the trust board has for the Booster Club for the outdoor event lighting project. We approved the portion that Northwestern Energy needed to get started, and so what we need to do is approve the balance of that.
Make a motion to approve the balance of the trust board. Is it the 44,000, or is there another figure?
Up to 44,000 would be appropriate for the motion. We did pay a portion of that last week. The total is 44. It was 15,000 with change. I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to pay the balance of the $44,000 grant for the Townsend Booster Club and outdoor event lighting project. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carries. And I don't see a place that we need to sign. So we'll just get the minutes to Debbie. Do you want me to put that in my pile? Okay. This we agreed to do a couple weeks ago. It's just a letter to BOR on behalf of the Silos Recreation Area, and it's just detailing some of the BOR equipment that needs attention and repair. Sharon and her crew are willing to do the work, but the materials should be purchased by BOR according to their contract. And that portion is quoted in the letter. And that was also sent to you. It was in your mail and emailed. Okay, I'm not gonna actually take a vote since we already voted on this, but I will ask you to sign above your name. Thank you. We have a claim here that doesn't need to be voted on, just needs your initial, so I pulled it out separate. And this is just for repairs to the Explorer. It broke while Extension had it in Bozeman. Thank you. And next we have the questionnaire from SJ 15 from the Legislative Committee. We didn't agree to have a working committee with the different partners. So I also sent a copy of this to you, and this is just some draft questions, or excuse me, answers to their survey. I think it would be inappropriate for us to answer their survey with yes and no questions. They're pretty open-ended. And I worked on this with Kathy Bushnell at the Forest Service. And it pertains mostly to Forest Service projects, watersheds, so. And this was sent to you before, about Wednesday probably. take a vote on that since it was just discussed last week.
You want a motion then? I'll make a motion to accept this letter. SJ-15 survey.
I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to send responses to the SJ-15 survey. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, motion carries. All right, we are 1 minute to 10:15, so we'll start early. Brian Hone, Solid Waste Supervisor update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We'll get the gory details out of the way first, how things
Okay.
are running. Had a little issue with our excavator last week, had a crack develop in the radiator on Friday. We were able to get that resolved on Friday, so we're, no downtime, back up and running, so that's good. It is roofing season, we're getting a lot of calls for canister rental for replacement of roofs, which is good, that's revenue to the department. And I believe the last time I was here, I had brought up the topic of, at some point, we were probably going to be asked to take over recycling.
You did.
Well, that happened sooner than I thought it was going to. At our July Solid Waste Board meeting, John Hahn came to us with that request. He's also on the Solid Waste Board. And the reason for his request is because the Pro Auto building where the cardboard baler is housed has been sold, and they need to move that baler. I think it needed to move soon, like within the next week or two. The initial plan was John was gonna move it out to the Hahn Ranch. The operators of the Hahn Ranch had some issues with that, they don't really want it out there. So he came to us and saying, would you guys be interested in taking it over? The biggest obstacle there, of course, is the location. Solid Waste Board discussed it, and we thought, the easiest solution would be to build a building to the south of the canister site that could accommodate our needs. After discussions with people that are in the cardboard recycling business, specifically Dave Leverett from Four Corners Recycling in Belgrade, he had some suggestions on a building that would change the initial concept that we had. We were figuring just a pole barn structure with a concrete floor that would take care of our needs. He says, no, you're probably gonna want a stem wall built, so you have something to push up against, because you will push up against it at some point in time, so instead of having to repair a building, then you'd have a concrete wall there that wouldn't cause any problems. So that brought up some other issues. I did put together a prospective budget, and it is rough. But I have copies of that for you guys. In addition to putting this building up, it would create a need for a third person in the department.
Can I have another one for Elaine? Do you have an extra?
Yeah, I have my copy. I think I know what it said. We'd have a need for a third person. We did include a third person in our budget for FY14. However, it was at, I believe, 30 hours a week. With the addition of cardboard recycling, I could see that going to 40 hours a week. But with the delay, what's gone of the year now, and with the delay in getting advertised and hiring, I think we'll be okay with that. We'll have to pencil it out and see, but I think there's enough money in our budget to cover a full-time person for FY '14, just from the vacancy savings from the beginning of the year till we bring somebody on board. So that is an issue we need to look at. We do have a position description put together. It needs to be fine-tuned a little bit to include the recycling side of things. But as you can see from that, we estimate we could put a facility together to handle our needs for about $85,000. That includes a compactor for handling plastics. If you take that out, it's $75,000 for the building, for cardboard, and we feel that would be adequate. Now, there is some other options that we could look at. I know there's talk of building a facility for all interested parties, for lack of a better term. That would work if it's in the general vicinity where we want to put that building now. Another option would be looking at the Perry building, either with a lease or a purchase of that. We could do what we need to do there for probably, with additions that we need to do to that building, we could probably get into there for, outlay of capital expense, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, I'd say 30 to 50,000, excluding the purchase price, of course. I'm not sure what the going asking price is for that building, but the solid waste department would be willing to come up with some cash for the building itself. If the commissioners would come up with the land around it, that would be acceptable to us, I believe, so. Those can be looked at further in the engineering phase of this project. I don't know if I need to ask for your blessing or just go ahead and pursue with this, or what we need to do.
You should probably have our approval, since we have, then we'd have your back, legally. With your budget, could you also, just amend this a little bit to show savings over the last year? I know that all the savings have not been due to recycling. I know that good management's been a big part of it as well. But if you could include that in here to give us a balance.
Well, at the end of FY, I get confused on this, 13, the year that just ended,
Yes.
the solid waste department finished the year with 33% of their budget remaining, which is what is typically used to carry over for the next year to cover the period of time where we don't have a budget in place. So if you just looked at what was saved that year, there's $160,000 there that could be used to do whatever we need to do. We also paid off our PILT loan last year and still had 33% of our budget remaining. So I think there's money in the cash account to help us out. I'm not exactly sure what the exact amount is, but it's in the neighborhood of a couple $100,000 that's sitting out there that we could use to either purchase or build a structure that would meet our needs. But the timing of this is what's the issue.
Sure.
John needs to have the baler moved, I think it was the first week of August, which is past. I don't know if it got moved or not, I haven't talked to him. But the less time we have to haul canisters out to the Hahn Ranch, the better off we are. That's a nasty crossing of the railroad track there. It's a safety issue with my driver and our equipment, so.
How many miles out there is it, Brian?
2 miles.
Okay. Any questions, Franklin?
Well, it was discussed there at that meeting, whether it's worth doing this recycling or just take it all, like I have done in the past, so. I don't know, there were a couple of tiny figures there that Tom, you know, was gonna get some figures and see how it worked out. It might just,
Well, it's
it's,
what it costs us to haul trash to the landfill is, with fuel and tipping fees, is about $38 to $39 a ton. Any amount of waste you can pull out of the waste stream and not haul to the landfill, we're saving $39 a ton. But there is some cost with, you know, baling and that kind of thing. And, but it does generate a little revenue. So I don't know really what the revenue side of it is, because John's been taking care of that. But, you know, that's easy enough to find. I think they get anywhere from $80 to $120 a ton for cardboard.
So it's really the savings to your department that you guys have been realizing. John, as an independent contractor, has been realizing the revenue.
Right.
Now, that would all
It
go
would come in
to
more.
solid waste. This is something that, I would like to have John and Tammy Hahn be here. And they're both working.
Yeah.
But, those two, in my opinion, are heroes in the way that they have started recycling. The grant that started the cardboard recycling was a partnership. It was BCDC, Extension, and the county. It was Tim Pool at that time who put that together. And Tammy and John did it for years as volunteers. And you said that we, exhaust our volunteers often, which we do, but I tell you what, I think John and Tammy would continue if they had the facility, which they just don't,
Yeah.
with the sale of Han Ranch Feed and Supply. The response I have received from the public, by and large, has been positive to recycling. The problem is, it's usually a feel-good. But you've gotta look at the safety for you and your employee. You've gotta look at the wear and tear of driving up and down that county road. Safety of the people on the road, and the railroad. There's going to be more and more traffic on that railroad with potential coal trains and other issues. There's the new landing there with Graymont, which is gonna add to the congestion there. We're also now talking time and money. Your time, Steve's time to sit and wait for the train to go by. I think when you take the emotions out of recycling, which is where a lot of people start, I think this county has demonstrated through that partnership that it is a money saver for your department and then for taxpayers.
It's I think it's a worthwhile, the people that I've talked to, they like having the option to recycle. There are people that will never recycle. And, but what I've seen is, people ask me, well, who does the most recycling? Is it the younger kids or who? And I'd say the senior citizens are probably the best at it. They take the time and break down their cardboard, separate their plastic, do it the way it's supposed to be done. The people that are worst at it are probably my generation, because for various reasons, they don't think they have the time to do it. It's easier just to throw it in the trash. It's a continuous process of educating people and trying to make it as easy as possible to recycle. And that's why I think, consolidating it with the department is probably a good thing. The addition of a third person would help us out with a lot of other issues. We'd have vacation fill-in. We'd have somebody to site monitor at the rural locations. We'd have somebody to help with litter control. So, and it would free up my time a little bit to do more than the nuts and bolts management of the department, take care of more managerial stuff than I've been able to get to, so. I guess that's my pitch.
How long has your department been two people? Do you know?
When Tim had it, he had part-time people that helped out. Since I've been on board, it's just been Steve and I. And, I think it's run fairly well, but it does get hectic at times. When you'd like to take a day off, you need to schedule it around, is it a busy day, is it a slow day, can we do it? And we've been able to do that, because Steve and I work well together. That's the big kicker there. So, and we've had money in our budget for the last 2 years anyway, for part-time people. We just did not hire them. So that played into that savings that we see at the end of the year too, so.
And you're right, it was 3 part-time people that were in that department besides the
Yeah, there was
supervisor.
2 full-time employees, and then I think there was 2 or maybe 3 at times. But I know there was 2 for sure that were part-time temporary.
No. Okay. So you said time is of the essence. What does that mean?
John needs to move his cardboard baler.
Now,
Now, he can move it out to the ranch for a period of time. But I think we need to get started on a plan to move it to where it's gonna be permanently located. So I guess today, if I could get approval for the engineering phase of this project to move forward, that would work. We could get people on working on building design and the other options that are out there, either the building that's laying down in the road crew's yard, what it would take to put that thing up and use it, or even the Perry building. Look at what needs to be done to that to make it work for us. So, and then we can begin discussions with those folks to see if they're willing to sell or lease, so.
any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd go along with getting some figures and stuff, but we need some more figures on, this is on building, stuff like that, but we need some figures on the pros and cons of this. Do we want to be involved in it? Would we be better maybe to just let individuals handle this recycling, like they do it in different places, from what I understand, but those are some things we're gonna have to consider and decide on.
It would be good to have John and Tammy Hahn here. They've been doing it for a number of years, and I think their core group of people that help them out is up to 3. Besides John and Tammy, they have one other person that helps them out on a regular basis. To find volunteers or people that are willing to step up and take that over is gonna be difficult.
Yeah, well, I'm not thinking how much volunteers, there's different companies that have these kind of satellite recycling areas. They have their main one, I think it's one over by Four Corners there, pretty, so they come travel around quite a bit.
That's where our cardboard goes.
Right, and that's why,
And I'm sure he'd give us a price to come in and set up an operation for us.
Oh, he'd be happy.
He's not gonna do it for free.
We looked at that a couple years ago, Franklin. I don't think it was Four Corners. I can't remember who it was. Allied.
Headwaters.
It was Headwaters. The canisters that they give the counties is about $16,000 if I remember right. There is a cost for everything they do. It is a very costly venture to bring in a private company to start doing recycling. The way it was done, because it was started the way it was here, has really been a capstone project for the rest of the state. Other counties have come to tour our facility. I know John has been in contact with a number of recyclers, telling them what we've done. So I think if we want to continue to save money and be frugal, we need to at least give you the chance to bring forward some options and plans and consider this. If we want to turn this over to a private company, it's, in my opinion, a waste of taxpayers' money, but it's a waste of a lot of taxpayers' money.
Well, we wouldn't be paying a private company to come in. If they want that stuff, they come in and set up and handle it.
That's not how it works, frankly.
Well, I think it could be, and if, that's a few things that's gotta be checked out first, I think, before you get too far along in this.
Yeah, I would welcome you to go ahead and do that homework if you would like. In the meantime, I would like personally some numbers. Engineering study, I'd like it on Perry Building, for one. Also, the joint project that's been talked about with weed, an extension, and then also the Forest Service building. And if you have any other brainstorms, throwing those in too. I think the more information we can get, before moving forward, the better. And, Brian, if you could also put together another option, that is do nothing. I think we need to know what that is. We've talked about the fact that you guys, work weekends. You come in on holidays to take care of the canisters Christmas when they get over full, and it's just the two of you. You're working far over 40 hours a week. And the other piece of that is safety. Is that a safety hazard to have you guys working the hours you're working? I'd much rather be looking at a plan like this than paying work comp claims. I think that's also a waste. Necessary if it's needed, but let's not make it needed.
Okay, so I will, do I have the okay to go ahead and have some engineering work done on this, on these issues then?
Franklin, do you have any opposition?
No, I'd say go ahead with that, because that's what we want. We want all this information, so that's part of the information. Whichever route we go, I think we should have that information.
And then where do we stand with the additional person?
I guess that'd be depending what we do with,
I think, right now, there's probably a need for at least a part-time. That's why I included part-time in our budget. Because there are things that we just can't get to in a week, that need to be done. You know, we get to litter control when we find the time to get there. If we had an additional person, we could keep on top of that a little better and keep things a little cleaner and do some site monitoring to see if we have people from out of the district dumping at Winston, Raidersburg, Toston, and just have better coverage on that. And like I said, it's in my budget for a 30-hour person.
Past practice on that, Brian, has been that when a department head has determined that they have a need for another employee, they have the money in their budget, that we have deferred to them as the, as the expert in their budget, and said, get what you need. This is true of the clerk and recorder, the clerk of court, the sheriff, county attorney, maintenance, finance office, weed. So I don't see any reason why we should treat you any differently. Do you have any thoughts, Franklin?
well, if it's in the budget there, I guess, that'd probably be okay. I'm still skeptical of it looks to me like a day or two a week could be, enough for an extra person.
We'll look at that. That's why I said 30 to 40 hours a week in the budget. Because I don't know what we need for site monitoring work and that kind of thing. I do think there's a need for it. I've heard a lot of issues about it. People from out of county, out of the district, dumping there. I think the biggest issue I see is the vacation filling. Not that Steve and I don't get a day off once in a while. We manage around it where we can do that. But, it's usually take a Friday off here, give yourself a long weekend kind of thing. To actually plan a vacation is not an option that we have right now, so. And it creates a hardship on the other employee when one person takes off for a week-long period of time. but we can't do it. And we have done it.
Mhm.
But it also creates the problem of, at the end of the year, we have a huge vacation liability that we need to deal with. Because you don't take your vacation, it books up, and then you have to take it or lose it. And then it's an issue where you're running one person anyway, where if we had another body around, we could take care of that. And not have that use it or lose it situation develop, so.
Which it's just not right to have a benefit for an employee that they get to earn vacation, but because we understaff that department, you lose that vacation. You mentioned the word liability, I see a big one with that. We have a good relationship with you and Steve, but that's no reason to be treating employees that way.
Right. And I will, well, I'll get with Debbie and look at what we have to do to move on the person then.
Okay,
And follow up on the addition of cardboard baling and recycling, so get
excellent.
some firmer numbers for you to look at.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be
That's
very
what we
good.
need.
Okay,
All right, any other questions?
You know, that's
Nope.
basically it, right there. Anything, get those sweepers, information that we need.
I've heard my name bannered around as doing something with safety for the county. Is that still an issue that I need to address?
You know, if you have the time, we know you have the expertise, would you be willing to have a safety meeting? We're behind on that. You had maybe accidentally, but volunteered your services not too long ago. So, that is why I brought you up as a potential. Another one you could maybe partner with is Mike, who also has experience. But if you could give us a little bit of time for that right now, that would be invaluable.
I think we can work something on
Along with that bantering of your name, what is your experience with safety?
it. Primarily, I spent 8 years as the industrial hygienist and environmental supervisor at a 600-plus employee aluminum plant. And part of my duties as the industrial hygienist was not only to conduct and monitor employee exposure throughout the plant for various chemicals, but I served as, there was kind of a core group of 3 people that acted as the steering committee for the company-wide safety committee. We held meetings monthly with a large group of safety representatives. Those people then went out to their respective departments and held additional meetings with each crew. And it was a pretty good safety program they had. We had myself, a person that was on the operations side that was a safety coordinator, and the head of security, who was also the head of the medical. They had a physician's assistant on staff, so they had a fairly good medical program there, fully licensed EMT ambulance service, the whole bit. So he was involved with that steering committee also. My duties pertain mostly to the industrial hygiene side. On the safety side, I was the chairman of the personal protective equipment committee, and we went through and looked at what clothing could be worn in the plant, what couldn't be worn in the plant, did different testing on equipment to see, or clothing to see which was best. It was kind of a fun project. I know a little bit about it.
Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Not from me. Franklin? All
Then
right.
I will be off and take care of the trash.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, that is 10:45. Next, we're going to go ahead and close our county commission meeting and open a public meeting, public hearing, excuse me, for the Broadwater County Animal Public Responsibility Ordinance. And I saw our county planner in the doorway.
Good morning.
Good morning.
here if anyone's interested. I'll read it aloud as well, but. Anybody else? So this has been posted for 3 weeks now, which I know is somewhat extensive, but I wanted to be sure that the public had enough time to look at this or comment on it. I haven't had any formal comments on this process yet. Would you like me to read this aloud?
Please.
Okay. So this is the proposed Broadwater County Animal Public Responsibility Ordinance. And as you can see, it's not in the ordinance format just yet. That'll be pending the outcome of today's meeting. Number 1, it is unlawful for any person to willfully and cruelly inflict pain upon or injure any animal. This does not prohibit a person humanely destroying an animal for just cause, the use of commonly accepted agricultural and livestock practices on livestock, rodeo activities that meet humane standards of the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, lawful fishing, hunting, and trapping activities, lawful wildlife management practices, lawful scientific or agricultural research or teaching that involves the use of animals, services performed by a licensed veterinarian, lawful control of rodents and predators and other lawful animal damage control activities, or accepted training and discipline methods. And this is taken from MCA 45-8-211 4A through I. Number 2, all animals shall be kept in a safe and sanitary condition and shall be regularly fed and watered of a sufficient quantity and quality to sustain the animal's normal health. This is taken from MCA 45-8-211, subitem 1CI. Number 3, all animals shall be given the minimum protection from adverse weather conditions with specific consideration given to the species. Taken from MCA 45-8-211, subitem 1C2. Number 4, it is unlawful for any person to abandon any animal on any highway, railroad, or in any other place where it may suffer injury, hunger, or exposure or become a public nuisance. From MCA 45-8-211, subitem 1D. Number 5, it shall be unlawful for any person to keep or maintain a vicious dog. A vicious dog is any dog that, unprovoked, bites or attempts to bite a person, or that, unprovoked, has killed or injured another animal when said dog has not been confined to the owner's property. This ordinance shall be enforced by the Broadwater County Sheriff's Office. A person convicted of the offense of cruelty to animals shall be fined an amount not to exceed $1,000 or be imprisoned in the county jail for a term not to exceed 1 year, or both. A person convicted of a second or subsequent offense of cruelty to animals, or of a first or subsequent offense of aggravated animal cruelty shall be fined an amount not to exceed $2,500, or be sentenced to the Department of Corrections for a term not to exceed 2 years, or both. And this is taken from MCA 45-8-211, subitem 2A. And I would like the commission to know that I have emailed this to the sheriff's office, both the sheriff, the undersheriff, and Deputy Harris. Deputy Harris did come down and speak with me last week and said they were going to talk about it, because I realized that this is going to be a big impact on them, but I still haven't heard anything from the sheriff's office. But I have had communication that they did receive it, they're aware of it. But that's as far as our conversation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And again, just to reiterate, you said you have not heard any response from the public.
Not anything formal, just
Okay.
some very brief conversations, what does this mean or what about this, but nothing that has been made a part of the record.
Okay, we did receive a letter during the public meeting last week from Tim Ravindall,
Okay,
and we will get you a copy of that.
Okay.
So you have that for the public record.
okay.
And it looks like we have some public
I'm
comment.
so sorry for interrupting this, because I am very unfamiliar with this. but I-
Please state your name for the record.
Lita Hanson,
Thank you.
and I'm a resident of Townsend. And at this point, I'm very unhappy, and I come to share my story, but only when you tell me I can.
You know what, this is a public hearing, we'd love to hear from you. Yes, it's your turn.
Okay, I live in a 4-apartment building. We live at the back. We've been there a little over a year. I live with a husband whom I care for full-time. And we have a little dog, Chihuahua pug named Molly. And just across the driveway is this big yellow apartment of which some little playhouse kids are living there, and they have 2 big dogs. And the brown spotted dog has come over and nailed Molly, my little dog who's on a leash, nailed her to where she was screaming, and the girl said, "My dog won't hurt her." And a week ago Friday, August 2nd, I propped the door open a little bit for our dog because she was on a leash and she'd come in and out. Well, 20 minutes to 9, here come that big white dog with brown spots. He come in the house and he nailed my dog, and they went under the kitchen table and there was all kinds of noises. I was trying to pull that dog by his collar, but I wasn't strong enough. Then he had my puppy in his mouth, shaking her like this, and I was screaming, "Don't kill my dog, don't kill my dog." And finally I got a hold of the sheepdog's snout and his lower jaw, and I pulled it open, and my dog fell to the floor on her side with her eyes wide open and her mouth wide open and absolutely no movement. I kicked that dog and lost my slipper across the kitchen, but he got outside, and I picked my dog up under her front legs, and her head and front legs bent over to her butt. I thought she was dead, but she must have been knocked out or her air cut off at her throat. My husband called 911. Nobody come out. Nobody come out. They said, "Well, we'll make a record of this." And Monday morning, the dog catcher, Randy, come out. He said, "Well, I wasn't on duty." And I said, "Well, a sheriff or somebody should have come out to help us." We're older people, and my dog is my therapy because we have such illness at the house. But if they'd have killed Molly, I probably would have died because I'm a triple bypass heart patient, and I couldn't take it. My dog was tied, and the other dog has run loose and has been hurting Molly before. And the girl said, "Oh, it won't hurt anything." The dog catcher told me they will get a citation, but he said that nothing will happen to the dog. What? It was loose 11:30 yesterday morning, running out, going potty on the yard. And I don't let Molly out now unless I go out with her. She will not go potty on that side of the house. I'm out there with a big stick. I'm gonna hit that dog if it even comes near me. But they live in an apartment upstairs, and the big old dog is always looking out the window. And we're either gonna have to move. I'm crippled up. I usually use a walker, but I was afraid of the stairs. My husband, he's not healthy at all. He's kind of just biding time. And we're in our 80s, and I feel like I am gonna have to move because Randy, the dog catcher, said, "Well, nothing will happen there." He said, "I will give him a citation." And then you read about vicious dogs. Good God, it's living right across the road from me. I think it's a sheepdog. It's about this high, and it was strong, but it has nailed Molly before with her on her leash, right at her door. So how come the police didn't respond? What kind of town is Townsend? Don't they have a fill-in for a dog catcher? I mean, this was an incident that we should have had somebody, because I was fit to be tied. Really fit to be tied. I was upset. I thought my dog was dead. And now she's very traumatized. She's not eating right, and she's not responding like she used to. She's scared, and she won't go outside by herself. And she's just a little Chihuahua pug. In fact, I brought her a little picture. Her teeth show all from part of the pug that she is. But she's a good dog, house trained. And yeah, once in a while, my sick husband will let her outside. He thinks she needs to go to the bathroom, and she would run wild. This was before the incident, but now you can't get her out. What is going to happen here? Are you gonna go see the people? Are you gonna do something about the dog? Or are we gonna move? I am upset.
I don't blame you with that.
How come somebody didn't come out? I'm so sorry for getting excited, but you guys have no idea, it was hard.
Thank you very much for your comments. And-
Can I expect something?
Yeah, in fact, we have the sheriff right behind you. We can talk to her about that, or if you wanna address her now, either one.
Oh, I don't wanna go through it again. I try hard not to relive it.
We can chat.
But, and the dog punctured my arm and I had blood covering my little finger. And, I don't know if it's had rabies shot or not. I just know that I've got my Molly.
Now,
But my dog is tagged and licensed and shot and has all her shots and everything. Something's gotta happen, or we as old people are gonna leave Townsend then, because I can't have a police force like that that wouldn't help us. It was at about 10 o'clock, or 9 o'clock it was, excuse me, because we go to bed at 10. And my husband finally called the sheriff's office, or the 911 again, and said, well, it's 10 o'clock, we're going to bed, nobody showed up. And they said, well, we'll get to it. Nothing happened till Randy, the dog catcher, come Monday morning, and he didn't know anything about it. I did file out a report for him. And he did say that they would get a citation, and to me, I thought a citation was a warning, and he said, no, a ticket. I said, you're gonna leave the dog there? He says, well, we don't think we're gonna do anything with the dog. Why not?
yeah, and that's one of the reasons that we're addressing this, so that we have the ability to give our law enforcement.
Well, I'm so
routine.
happy that she come in and was reading all of that, because it sure seems up my alley.
Yeah. Two things for you. I'm glad your dog is okay,
Thank you.
first off. And second of all, your testimony and the heartfelt testimony goes a long ways in these kinds of hearings, so thank you for that. Don,
Yes. Broadwater County already has a vicious dog ordinance, which this does pertain to, exact same thing. 2004-19 states that any dog that harms another person's animal, dog, whatever, can be put down.
Well, this one came in the house.
Yeah, because it was on somebody else's it wasn't on its own property, it was on their property.
Yes.
This ordinance has already been passed as far as the vicious dog part,
yeah, you're right.
so there should have been something done with that.
Comforts me a little bit. Thank you.
And the state has vicious animal. It doesn't cover quite as much as the ordinance does.
Well, I must have been God that brought me here, because I'm so unfamiliar with all of this. And I was afraid to speak, but
You
I'm
did
so
well.
thankful you heard me,
Very well.
because I needed to tell somebody.
John,
John Wright's my name. Let me address your thing. A can of pepper spray will take care of the problem completely. He won't even come back after you give one blast. Now, it might go against this ordinances and some of these things here, but that is the answer, and it
That'd
won't.
be easier than that big stick, and I
Oh, yeah,
carry that
because it
stick.
might take the stick away from you. Some
It's
dogs
big
do
enough
that,
to-
because they like to play stick. My question, Laura, is this. In this ordinance, or the thing that you're preparing here, there is so many overriding rights of a citizen at home or on their property that this is astounding that this has come up with. We already have laws that will deal with her. We have a sheriff. It should have been responded immediately.
Yes.
Isn't that correct?
And the city has an ordinance also.
Right, we already have these laws. Why do we want a duplicate? This overruns constitutional rights at a rate, and your commissioners have an oath of office that you have sworn to God Almighty that you will uphold, that you're overrunning our rights. We don't need this. All we need to do is deal with the laws we already have. We got too many laws already. No more ordinances. My complete is against it.
thank you, John. Don, and please state your name for the record.
Don Bible. This situation here, though, yes, we have a vicious dog ordinance, but we don't have an ordinance stating if these dogs are sitting out here, and I think this is mainly what this is for, and they're not being fed, they're not being watered, and I see a lot of this, and there's a lot of it in the county. And it doesn't only pertain to dogs, it pertains to cats, horses, cows, whatever. I believe we do need this ordinance, because I have turned people in over the years because their dog or their cat or their cows are not being fed. Skin and bones. Yes, the sheriff has some authority, but I think the sheriff needs more authority.
as far as animals, I know most of our complaints that come into our office are dog at large, or barking dog, you know, just dogs running loose. That's where we don't have any, I guess, anything covering it. You know, neighboring dogs barking so loud that they can't stay awake. Also on your ordinance, or, you know, this sheet, I shouldn't say that ordinance, but you'll need to define what animal it is, like it is on the vicious animal.
I understand Deputy Harris took this to you. Do you have any, I appreciate that, I think that's very good. Do you have any other thoughts to share from the perspective of law enforcement regarding this, what we're talking about? The potential of a ordinance for responsible care of animals?
Well, and that's why I say you need to do it, A, within the law, and B, with defining which animals. You know, I mean, right now we've got herd districts, open range, I mean, an animal covers a lot of things.
And I think that, you know, there's this section in here under item number 1. You know, where is it, livestock practices, you know, so I would hope that would cover, you know, these herd districts, you know, or, you know, where we do have open range laws. I would still be running this through our county attorney, just to be sure. But I think the fact that we've got this in here that, you know, common practices on livestock, we certainly don't wanna supersede anything that's already been established in the county, so.
And also, I know some of the calls that you've gotten have been over horses in small pens not being adequately fed or watered. Speaks to what you said as well. This is not just dogs, but it is horses, cows, goats, you name it. But yeah, I think that's a good point, and maybe something that another snippet could be added to that just for clarification. But any other comments? John, I'll come to you after anybody else who has a comment has been heard. Yes, ma'am. And
Hi.
please state your name for the record.
I'm Jan Laram from Townsend, and I like this ordinance, and I appreciate and thank the county commissioners for considering it. And it addresses one of my 2 big concerns about animals, which is taking care of them. Public responsibility, and the title is a great way of phrasing it. I think it puts the responsibility back on the owner to shield them from what I see in my travels around our county, weather in Montana. It's either blazing hot or bitter cold, and I see animals out like Don who aren't cared for. And I think this gives the county officials some more encouragement and support to go out there and ensure we can take care of our animals. So I like it, I appreciate you considering it. I'd also, while I have the floor, put in a pitch for considering or suggesting the county consider barking dogs, public nuisance. Right now, we don't have a county ordinance dealing with that. We're blessed with real good neighbors, but things change. We all know that. And if you would consider including the public nuisance factor for chronic barking, I'd appreciate it, and I think it would address another one of our responsibilities, to be good neighbors. So I thank you, I like it. Consider maybe expanding it a little more, and appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Don?
Don Thompson, I'm a resident and taxpayer here in the county. 2 thoughts come to mind when I have heard this for the first time. That this may prove the fact that maybe I'm not too much smarter than the average tree stump, but in listening to that, what I heard you talk about was that this was taken from MCA section such and such, so and so. My question is, if the statutes already exist, why do we need to replicate them? That's my first question. My second question is, if we need to do something about animals and animal control that's not on the books, I would feel really good in the depths of my heart if the sheriff was consulted and you asked her what the complaints are that come in that she has no basis to operate on. And we've heard a couple of things already about the barking dogs. Maybe there's some other things that need to be built into a statute that's different from existing law. You know, we don't have to have too many more variations on the thou shalt not kill law. We kind of understand that. I mean, if it's already on the books, why write it again? Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole, do you have an answer to
I
that?
do, you know, basically, Don, what I was considering doing here is just condensing the code and making it a little more readily available for the public and also for the sheriff's office to be able to use this ordinance.
I mean, if we want to increase the penalties, that's different from current existing law. And I don't have any problem at all about that. I've got a soft spot in my heart for animals. And I hate to see them being mistreated and abused. I also don't like to see animals that are not under adequate control. And nobody likes a constantly barking dog. So let's check with the sheriff and see where she needs some statutory help. And build that in. And maybe kick the penalties up a little. Get people's attention.
And I don't know that we can increase the penalty since it is set by state statute. I don't know that that's something this commission would want to consider. But, you know, to basically pull in all of these things from MCA code and make one easy handout, I guess, for lack of a better word, for folks to be able to look at, for the sheriff's office to be able to utilize, just to make it more readily available to the public. Not everyone has access to the MCA codes or, you know, the big bookcase of books. So this was just putting this all together, and then that way we could add some things, maybe if, you know, we wanted to add the barking dog, you know, chronic barking, I think is a better way of looking at it, but,
Ask the sheriff what tools she needs.
right.
And I appreciate that, the sheriff was sent a copy by Nicole, so, we are covering that, we're not gonna do anything without working with the sheriff, most definitely. The other thing is we do increase, in this proposal, the penalties. MCA calls for, the first penalty to be $500, whereas ours calls for $1,000. So, you know, I thought that was on purpose.
No, it wasn't, you know, I
Alright.
pulled it right from MCA online, so
Okay.
I'll have to go back and double check that.
Yeah, and I certainly could be wrong as well. One thing we can do as a county is take state law and actually make it more strict. We cannot override state law and make it less strict. So that is something that we could do if we wanted. So just throwing that out there, but thank you very much for your comments, they're well done. Any other comments? Melinda?
Yes, ma'am, I'm Melinda Holland, and with this dog over here, I'm sorry, ma'am, but I've been a witness to this dog that she has.
The
It is
little one?
not, yes, it is not a polypure dog. When she first moved around there, the dog was running all over the streets, in the yard, chasing kids on bikes and stuff, riding behind her husband in her four-wheeler, wanting to come over in my yard and crap. So I want the record straight also that this dog is not a polypure dog either. It has had its issues in running around and being boss and chasing people down the street that I have seen, and also to come in my yard and want to poop. So the next time your dog
Okay.
comes in my yard, I will pick up the poop and take
Right,
it to you.
Melinda, we'll have no threats, and that is way off the top.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but it's like, she
That's
says
enough.
polypure. It's not
Now,
polypure.
we are going to have an orderly and civil discussion. Anyone else want to make a comment? Cheryl?
Cheryl Campbell, ditto Mr. Thompson's comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bob Brastrup. I have the same question that Don did about if it's in state statute, why is it being repeated? And I think you've answered that in that it can be made more restrictive than state law. I'm in full support of the ordinance, and without something like that, you have no teeth, as I understand it, to handle things like the dog situation that Lewis and Clark and Cascade County ran into, that his, that was terrible, okay, for what they had there. One of those was in Sun River, wasn't it? And the other one was someplace there in Lewis and Clark County. The one thing to watch out for is that, you know, it costs somebody some money when you pick up all those animals like that. In this case, it was the Humane Society, and they had donations and everything that came into it. But without that law, you couldn't have done anything with them, as I understand it. I'm in full support of your ordinance.
Thank you. Any other public comment before we hear from John again? Brenda?
As Bob and Don both said, we do have state statute that covers vicious dogs. Sorry, let me make sure this isn't the office. The only thing that I see that we don't have that covers us in the county right now is for dog at large and the nuisance dog, the barking dog. You know, if those are some, we also get several complaints on feral cats. But I guess with that information, I also want to pose to the commission that our staff numbers are what they are. You know, as Bob brought up, it's a spendy situation when you come into a lot of these. If the ordinance requires us to pick them up. You know, I mean, it's gonna cost the county dearly, us as taxpayers, and rightfully so on a lot of them. But that's something to keep in mind too.
Thank you. Any other comments before we hear repeats? Trudy?
If this goes forward, then if there are a lot of animals that wind up being picked up for whatever reason, does the county have funds and facilities to house them?
We don't, but we do have a contract with the Humane Society and if Lewis and Clark, so that's where we would send them. For us to build a facility and staff it would be quite an expensive project. To work with the Humane Society is really quite reasonable. The cost for us last year was about $2,100 out of our whole budget, so it's not very much.
Temporary housing on dogs, you work with the city for temporary holding.
And you could certainly look into the details with that.
We currently do that.
You do that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
Laura, how about it? Why are you going around me and you're doing these people 2 or 3
Because I already said I'm
times?
gonna give everybody a chance to speak once, and then we'll hear to other people repeat. He just raised his hand, and I haven't called on him either.
Okay.
Now, are there any other comments from those who have not been heard? All right, John?
Thank you. I understand that Tim Ravendall wrote a letter to the commissioners to be presented at this hearing. And I want it read to the audience.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. Before we do that, though, Don, another comment?
I have a thought, maybe, again, this is gonna prove that I'm dumber than the average tree stump, but is it possible to include in the ordinance a clause that makes the owners of the animals accountable for any funds that are necessary to take care of these animals, thus not dipping into the county's coffers?
Doesn't that come out of the fine?
Whatever the costs are of dealing with the problem, the owner should be accountable for, my thinking.
I think that's an interesting question.
I bet there's
I'd
something
be
on there
curious
already.
to, well, in the law, there is the fine, but sometimes the cost far exceeds what the fine will cover. I think that's a reasonable question, and we can certainly look into it.
I'm no lawyer, I don't know the answer to that.
Neither are we. But we can ask the questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Laura, Jefferson County situation with the Malamutes, that sad, expensive situation that occurred last year, might be a good resource to find out. Now, I know the Humane Society paid for a fair amount of that care, but I sort of have a vague recollection that now the Humane Society is going after that individual's money or property to pay. So I'd suggest we contact at least Jefferson County and the Humane Society to see the steps they had to follow, and maybe we can shortcut it. and just deal with the individual.
That's a great suggestion. I think always we learn more from our mistakes than from our successes. And if we can learn from
The neighbors.
what happened in Jefferson,
Yeah.
maybe we can avoid that mistake ever happening here. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, I will read Tim's letter per John's request.
Thank you.
And we will again get a copy to Nicole. Broadwater County Public Responsibility Ordinance. We have had multiple attempts to single out particular species of dogs at the Montana legislature, from attacks on working ranch dogs to guard dogs dating back to 1947 in Montana law. It appears that the ordinance being presented revolves around an incident here in the county. In the event that there was an incident, clearly stated in the ordinance are in parts 1 through 4, the Montana Code 45-8-211 provides law enforcement the necessary tools to hold irresponsible owners of animals accountable. Not only are these concerns addressed here, but also in Montana law for the local law enforcement agencies to protect the public safety. It is not proper to take a matter like this and inflict a situation where law-abiding owners of animals could be inadvertently targeted with this ordinance. It matters not if there is a violation, because it is the responsibility of the law enforcement department to investigate and appropriately charge anyone that may be in violation of this ordinance. In the event that the citizen is not in violation, they still have to take the time to defend against such a charge, and that can cost thousands of dollars in our court system. I am speaking from experience here, as I was wrongfully charged with cruelty. In this case, I was judged without proper investigation for cruelty based on a complaint lodged against me. A citizen filed a complaint against me based on a bias against hound dogs. I rightfully challenged the charge and showed there is no crime committed. The circumstances of that case resulted in a trial where I showed the approved training methods for just cause and no crime had been committed. The damage from that scenario can be damaging to anyone owning a dog, forcing them to defend themselves and their animal in a court of law. Item number 5 in the ordinance is the part that goes beyond Montana law. As stated earlier, Montana law protects the people in the name of safety of both the animal and citizens. It is therefore redundant to consider repeating Montana law in a local ordinance, further placing burden of law on law-abiding citizens. The title of the proposed ordinance gets to the root of the problem that the ordinance attempts to address. Personal responsibility of owners by far is commonly practiced. I think this ordinance is being brought forward by a biased prejudice against a particular species of dog without justification. If there is a need to explain the provisions found under Title 45, then I suggest the concerned citizens seek additional laws against the people there. We cannot legislate morality. Tim Ramadal, Townsend. I'm also going to make a comment for the record on this situation. If it was an error that the ordinance does increase the fine, it's an error that I think is appropriate, and I support that. Again, it is within the legal purview of counties to go beyond state law, so it is something that we could do. And I would want to hear from, of course, the county attorney on that, but that is my understanding. I have here an article, I put in several, from the IR on the Jefferson County situation with the Malamutes. The cost to Jefferson County to start was $500,000 to take care of those dogs. Another piece that I would like to investigate adding to the ordinance is per incident on the fine. Would this gentleman under this ordinance or the law been charged $500 as his fine, or would it have been $500 again under state law per dog? Our ordinance starts at $1,000, which is woefully under the $500,000 that it was going to cost Jefferson County taxpayers per incident. I think would be more appropriate. The Humane Society did step in and bailed out Jefferson County to the sum of $377,000. That left $160-ish for the taxpayers for those dogs. So, do we want that here in Broadwater County? And I think that's really kind of the gist of the whole thing here. We have an opportunity to learn from Jefferson County and Cascade County's mistakes. We have the opportunity to address it before we have to deal with the issue. And So those are my comments, just based on history and the experience of our neighbors. I also wanna address Tim's letter. He addresses strictly a vicious dog ordinance, which we already have in state law. We also have as something we can have teeth on for the county. This ordinance is not about vicious dogs only. It is also about the horses who have been fed loaves of bread in this county that have been reported to the sheriff's office. It's about the numerous people who have filed complaints about horses and cows not having water in the heat of our summer. This is not only about dogs. So I think that's all my comments. And Nicole, do you have anything more to add?
I'd have a response to
Just
your,
a minute, John, it's not your turn.
You know, I do agree with Don Thompson. I think that you are smarter than the average stone.
too obvious.
But, you know, I agree with him. You're right. This is all in state law. But I do still believe that we should have something in the county record. Maybe we don't wanna make it an ordinance. Maybe it's just a document that we have or some, I think it should be adopted somehow. But maybe an ordinance isn't the right way to go. I guess I'm open for suggestion there, but I do think it's important to condense state law, because I don't know how many of you have tried to look through state law for something, and it's difficult. Not difficult, it takes some time, and so to be able to kind of have this shortened list of things that we're concerned with for, you know, the health and safety of our animals in the county, I think it's important to have a short list. I do want to keep it to one page if possible, because I think it's more convenient for the public as well as, you know, those of us working in the county. I also like Jan's suggestion of the barking dog, chronic barking dog. I don't know how the sheriff feels about that, because you're going to be the one receiving the calls. So I think that this is gonna be, regardless of how we move forward, we're gonna have to have a lot of communication.
Well, and there's also a statute covering cruelty to animals.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we've dealt with that statute and the vicious animal statute on different occasions in the county. But most people that call in and request us to do something about the barking dogs and the dogs at large. The city has an ordinance that you can't let your dog run off leash. The county doesn't, you know, and some of the county dogs come into the city. Dogs are dogs, you know. That's the majority of the calls that we get, are the constant barking dog, which the city doesn't have an ordinance either. And the dog at large. And as far as the Humane Society, those funds that, it comes from us, let's say a dog is right by the highway up here, we pick it up, we bring it in, nobody claims it. Then we take it to the Humane Society, that's where that billing process.
Thank you. Before we hear any more public comment, Franklin, do you have any thoughts or comments?
You haven't mentioned that cost of Jefferson County. I believe I read where they're gonna foreclose, take his property and stuff like that for compensation. I don't know, there must be a, you know, state statute somewhere where that can be done, or if not, maybe that's something that should be worded in there.
The thing with that is, that's a legal decision for the courts. There's a lot of questions when something goes to court. And one is, will they be successful? We don't know at this point. Two is, what if he didn't own any land? What if he didn't own a home? What if he was just an old, box?
Oh, yeah, I
What do
agree
you
like
do
that.
then? How do you protect the citizens?
But I think it could be in there, if nothing else, would be something for them to think about when they see that. And I agree, a lot of them, they just, of course, if they don't have anything, they probably wouldn't have that big of a, I forget how many dogs he had there, 150 or something.
166, I think.
Whatever it was, you know. Unless a person has a place, you know, you wouldn't see that happening. But it can, but anyway, I think it should be, if there's any way we can have it in there for compensation, it should be, or if we can, if not, just go through the legal system, I guess.
And the fines. All right, Bob, do you have a comment? Did I see your hand up?
Yeah, well, I had a question for the sheriff. we talk about the count, or the city ordinance, the city of Townsend ordinance. Is it the platted city limits, or is it the big city limits that the ordinance applies to?
I think it's the, don't quote me on this, is something that the attorney should probably answer, but I think it's the, whatever the area of the city receives, city services, you know, you've got your legal
Okay.
rights.
Well, the reason I ask is there's a guy that lost his dog and it wasn't licensed and all sorts of stuff, and he lives across the railroad tracks and said he didn't need to go through any of the city stuff because he was outside city limits. He's in city limits, but he's outside the platted city limits, which are different.
That's a good question though, and then I do think it's also a question for the county attorney. There's a donut hole. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
well,
what if that.
I didn't know if that
has.
applies to your ordinance or not, that's all.
That's another thing we'll have to make sure is clear if we do move forward with this. John?
Laura, anytime you make an ordinance and you approve it through due process of the law, it gives you enormous amount of authority to change it down the road. Now, we've got laws already that cover these things, and there is a simple thing of human beings being responsible for what they do. If you pass this ordinance, our sheriff, our entire judicial system will be overtaxed. We're already overtaxed. For you to consider this means you have no consideration of us taxpaying citizens. And you should be held accountable for it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. John?
Well, this is the way I look at it. I wasn't gonna bring this up. If you don't think there's a problem in Broadwater County, the sheriff can handle it to an extent. Come out to my place, within 205 yards, I've got 14 dogs. Bark, bark, bark. 8 of them are hounds. Within 3/4 of a mile, I got 19 dogs. They bark constantly. The sheriff has been out many times and taken care of it to the extent she can. But
Bang, there's
she
no
can't,
way. That's the only thing.
you cannot shoot it. You cannot shoot an animal, a neighbor's, or any animal, because then it's cruelty to animals. It's inhumane. So,
It's a catch-21.
yeah, I believe we need an ordinance of some kind that gives the sheriff more teeth. Yeah, maybe it's gonna cost the taxpayers dollars. Don't I deserve to sleep at night?
That's right.
I believe I do. I get up at 4 or 5:30 in the morning and work usually till 9, 10 o'clock at night. As most people that know me realizes I do this. When these dogs bark at night, I believe the homeowner that owns them dogs should be responsible for the fact that they should be able to take and train their dog. A dog is not hard to train. The biggest thing with an animal of any kind, if they're being neglected, they'll bark, they'll move, they'll whinny, they'll meow. And I believe the situation is, these animals, a lot of them are being neglected, and that's why they're making noise. I know these, one set, I watched for 4 days. He was gone for 4 days. It was 100 degrees almost, 95, 96 degrees. I could have called the sheriff, she could have come out. Maybe there's something she could have done, but I doubt there is, because the teeth are not in deep enough that she can act on some of these things.
See, now, like on something like that, the state law says that you must provide shelter, water, and food.
That's right. There's already a law there.
Yeah, the law is there.
Well,
As
You've got to
far
learn
as-
how to use it.
As far as the barking, Don, you and I both went to John Flynn when he was still alive.
Right.
And public nuisance is, from my understanding in a nutshell, was more than one person complaining. That's the public,
Right.
you know.
And I had to get 3 people to complain. You think either one of my neighbors was gonna sign that petition? I don't believe so. And
Yeah.
I went to John a couple times, and I know you
Yeah.
did too,
Yeah.
over this situation. What do? Do we just stay awake all night? If you don't believe me, I will set up a place for you to come out and you can sleep. Not a problem. I'll even feed you.
Look out, you might get a crowd.
So, I've got a lot of food.
Thank you very much.
Well,
All right, Franklin, any thoughts? Any opinions as far as direction for Nicole?
Just like I mentioned that, and maybe refine a little bit here and there, but, I think you've done real good so far, and along with I guess the most part is what we're saying, the legal bounds of everything.
So do you have any objection to the board asking Nicole to continue to pursue this? I think what we heard today is vast support with a couple of exceptions. Continue to work on this, communicate with the sheriff and Deputy Harris on this. And I'd be inclined to ask you to look into the ordinance, but also a resolution, if that would be a better legal step.
Okay.
And I believe Carla should be back Wednesday?
Wednesday.
All right.
And actually, could I have a copy? I thought about maybe drafting a memo for her and doing some research so it would expedite things a little more before she gets back.
That would be excellent. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nicole, if you'd also work with Jake.
Certainly.
Sure. I'm here till Friday. I have to move back then.
All right. If there's no further comment, that will conclude today's public hearing on the Broadwater County Animal Public Responsibility Ordinance. Thank you very much. And now we're just gonna have a discussion at 11:15, public discussion and criteria for providing road partnership for RIDs and other rural improvement options.
Public copy, if anyone's interested. Jake, do you want me to email you that? Would that be easier? Or do you want a hard copy?
I can come down after lunch and
Thanks
grab
for
a hard
coming.
copy. It's not a big deal.
Thanks.
Is anybody else interested in a copy of this? This is for our next discussion. I'll just leave them up here.
Nicole, yes, I'll.
Oh, sorry. You're welcome. So this, is a result of a meeting we had 2 weeks ago. Does that seem about right?
I think so. Yeah.
On the county partnering with citizens interested in doing an RID. And so this is just some bullet points. It's a real work in progress here. I'm not sure, I wasn't sure of the format that you wanted to pursue this. I don't believe it should be an ordinance or resolution. Basically, all it is a list of criteria. So I just put it together. I think from our conversation before, I'd mentioned to, I believe it was Tim, that I had this on my computer, but that's not serving the public when it's on there. So I think if we let them know that this is available, and we'll continue to let them know that it's available through any RID process. But so this is just a list of criteria for consideration for Broadwater County to assist with any road stabilization projects. So this is proposed. That's the big word on there. And I'll just read through it real quick here. The most important thing I think to note through this is, in order to be considered for assistance, the road must be a county road, meaning that the commissioner is certainly not going to partner with a subdivision road, any private roads. It must be a county road. So, number 1, the road serves as a school bus route. Number 2, the road serves as a mail route. Number 3, the road is a thoroughfare, meaning that it's a road used by more than just the residents living on that road. And number 4, frequency of use, the number of vehicle trips per day. So these aren't ranked in any way. Not one item is given more weight. I think that we should use some common sense maybe in looking through this partnership program. I considered, giving them each a 25% ranking, or 1 to 10, and maybe seeing where that fit. But I'm not sure how the commission would feel about that, because, it might be a school bus route that has one home on it. So if we give that a 10, because yes, it is a school bus route, but it's only serving one home. So I think that it's best to not apply a ranking system to this criteria, but that's certainly up to the commission to decide.
I'd like to request some additions, and I don't want to get too much on this list, but I think maybe we can take them off if it gets to be too much. But what I want is, I think it needs to be that this is in partnership with the road supervisor, keeping him in the loop, informed, engaged throughout the entire process. And Dana is on board with that as well. And the other thing is cost effectiveness must be shown. A county road that is, that doesn't pencil out financially, doesn't make sense for us to do this. And then the other one would be historic roads, stage routes, roads through historic towns like Raidersburg. And I guess, you know what, maybe that one goes with the thoroughfare, because with the way tourism is nowadays, it's experiential, which means people are going to ghost towns, Raidersburg, for example. So maybe that one doesn't need to be in there, but I think the supervisor and the cost effectiveness are important. Any thoughts, Franklin, on anything you'd like to see?
Maybe somehow like a case-by-case type situation. Say if all of a sudden we had 50 requests, just hypothetical. You could go case by case and determine the importance. So a case by case,
That's what
I
this
guess,
is for.
well, right, but is that defined in there enough? I don't know.
In the RID, it does say that we have discretion, that it's not guaranteed. This is just what criteria fits for people to consider, but they're all case by case.
Okay. Well, yeah, as long as it's, okay, I guess that's from the final part of it there.
Playing off that though, maybe another criteria would be subject to funds available. Any questions, comments, Linda?
I think there's a terminology, or there used to be, whether it's a farm to market road. Wouldn't that, wanna consider that?
Absolutely, farm to market, economic, yeah, I think that's an excellent one. Any other thoughts, questions?
Next thing you know, it jumps your tax up 20, 30%.
I guess I'm thinking to maybe expound on what Franklin mentioned there, to put something in here stating that each road will be looked at individually, independent of any other county roads, so that we couldn't come back and say, well, you did this on River Road, or you did this on Mill Road. So that we're looking at each road individually and not comparing. I think that's going to be important.
I agree.
So, I think just to expand on what you said just a little bit more, that they'll be looked at independently.
Okay.
So, case by case, definitely, but we're not going to compare, and we're not going to, to pull other instances into this, because everything is different, every road is going to be different. So I would like to add that, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And this is good for Indiana and people. One of the places whoa.
Does anything need to be mentioned about buy-in, partnership?
Explain a little bit what you think.
Some roads are done by Dana because he determines that there's a need and he's just done it. He's the road supervisor, that's his expertise. Some other roads, like River Road, the citizens come forward and they say, we would like this on our road. For a community to come forward, it is in the RID already that we did the document, but I wonder if for clarification reasons, it wouldn't be wise to put something like, this is a cost-sharing opportunity, or something along that line, so that there isn't an assumption walking in the door that if you request road stabilization assistance, the county's gonna pay for it. When the reality is, if you request road stabilization assistance and are prepared to cost share with the county, we will work with you within this criteria.
I think that, what I'm thinking we could do, instead of making that a bullet point, is, take this first little blip up here that says in order to be considered, make that into an end or a beginning paragraph, I guess the location doesn't really matter, but also add this partnership, you know, with the road supervisor needs to be added in there, that paragraph. I don't think that should be a criteria necessarily, but it should be an understanding. And also that the roads will be looked at independently. I think we could also put something into that paragraph, I think just to extend that paragraph to state that this is a cost share program. The residents will be, and I think it's fair to say, expected to financially participate in this program.
I like that. I like that.
But
And then it
to-
keeps the bullets more of a central,
Right, to kind of, you know, little tick marks that, oh, hey, it meets this, or it doesn't meet this, and,
good thinking.
but just to, but I think it's important to include it in there for public awareness. So, okay.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts, public or Franklin?
Other than, I'm gonna use this up there at the dairy for an example. They come in, I don't know if we should word this in there or not, maybe we should. They took care of the mag, but, and the county, applied it, and prepared it. Do we need anything, say, ROI, they say, we'll furnish this, and I think they do on that Centerville, don't they? Do we need anything in there stating that we work with them independently on something like that? I don't know if we need it in there or not. Maybe it can just come up at the time of the discussion, but,
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that that's Dana's office policy already. If an individual or individuals purchase any road stabilization material, he will apply it, obviously, at his convenience, you know, that fits for his crew and weather permitting.
maybe it's already taken care of.
So I don't know that we should put it in here necessarily, because this is more of a cost share. But if folks are already willing to provide the material and Dana's already willing to apply it,
No use repeating it.
right, exactly, I mean, to get in there and muck that up, because it seems to be working well for him, for his office anyway. And I think it's been that way since, maybe even before Bob was in there, but I know at least while Bob.
And I guess kind of we're gonna look at each one independently
Right.
anyway, so. Yeah, I guess we wouldn't need that. You try and keep this as simple as we can, and then if something comes up, that's when the discussion will take place.
Right, and this certainly is not going to be, I mean, I guess at the pleasure of the commissioners here, I'm not proposing it as an ordinance or resolution. Just kind of a free-floating document that we can use, just a tool, that we can use, the county can use. So we can add and remove things as they become necessary, to say, oh, you're right, that's a good point, or, you know, maybe we should take that off of there. So we don't have to go through the whole process of amending. I mean, we have plenty of tools available to all of our offices here, just kind of a document, and that we can provide to the public. You know, because we know these things, but when we can't provide it to them in an easy handout, I think that's not the best way to operate. So I think that this should be good in this format. If it does seem that that's necessary to be added, I think we can. My thought on it right now is if it's working for Dana and his office and the public, maybe not
Yeah,
put it on here.
that's fine, yeah, you bet.
Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. Would you shoot a copy to Dana too?
Sure will.
All right. Very good work on everything today.
Thank you. So coming back to this ordinance, my thought on it for timing. I wanna take all of these comments, put them together, get it through the sheriff's office to look at it, get it through Carla's office to look at, and then I'll bring it back to the commission for adoption. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
We have another
and
public meeting on it then after.
we'd want to re-advertise it for 3 weeks and have the public hearing for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably wait to talk to those two before scheduling?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I wanna make sure that we actually have the document available so that while it's posted, I can actually pass them a copy of the ordinance, the cleaned up, ready to go ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very
Great.
good.
just so I'm clear on what I'm doing next.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot.
All right, it is 11:44. Next on the agenda is Bob Rastrup, with concerned citizen, or as a concerned citizen.
Thank you. You know, in observing the meeting as it's gone on today, in my opinion, this is kind of the way commissioner meetings should be held. At times, I've had a feeling that some members of the audience think that you need their permission to make a decision. And this is not a town hall meeting, this is a county commissioner meeting. And you guys were elected to make the decisions, independent, some of them unpopular with people, but you need to make those decisions. A couple of weeks ago, the Broadwater reporter printed a retraction. And I believe, Commissioner Slifka, it was from your article that the commissioner's viewpoint. It's created some discussion and topics and stuff around town. I guess my first question for you is, do you write your commissioner viewpoint article?
Ask me, yes.
You do? Okay.
I have many people that I lay it area out, and they word it better, and take out, I always say take out the customers and different things like that, and make it presentable.
But you write your own news column. So, my question, or what I'm wondering about, what people are wondering about, is the reporter has printed a retraction from that one particular column that you wrote. Are there plans for you to print a retraction?
No, and it wasn't any attraction, if I remember right, it was an explanation. And that's, when people talk to me, that's when it's discussed, but your answer, no.
You know, and one of the things that we have in this country and with our constitutional rights is that we have a presumption of innocence before proven guilty. And that article was quite accusatory. So that explains what some of the questions that we've been getting. The second one that we have is that I understand the basis for your lawsuit against the other two commissioners is that they, in a telephone conversation, discussed county business and did not include you or did not do public notice on it. Am I correct in thinking that?
Well, that's the only answer I'll make on any of his, yes.
Have you ever gone out to Commissioner Gravely's house to discuss things with county business?
I've been out and talked with her. We didn't make any decisions.
But you discussed county business?
To a certain extent, because when we start talking about it, I'd say,
Did
now,
you-
can we do this? And Elaine would agree before we said anything. And that's all I'm gonna comment on.
Is that not also a violation of open meeting law?
I'm not gonna, no, but,
Did
and I'm
you-
not commenting anymore.
Okay, and you did not notify Commissioner Olbert when you went out?
Probably not.
Okay,
The one, well, I'm not saying anymore because, but, at the right time I can say it, I can't say it now.
okay, thank you. That answers questions that have been floating around coffee klatches and a few things around here for a period of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we are 11 minutes to lunch. This afternoon, we have a little bit of business to take care of, so we'll go ahead and resume mail. This is the public notice for the meeting Wednesday. We have a meeting in Winston Wednesday at 10:30 at the Big Bull Bar, and that is to discuss the mile per hour on, speed limit on Highway 287 in front of Winston. There's been some incidents with, there's a school bus stop there, so you've got kids crossing that highway. There's also the bar and the store, which is taking in a lot of traffic. Our fire hall is there in an emergency. They're also on that road, going slow, pulling out and pulling in. So that was brought to us by the citizens of Winston, and they would like to address with Montana Department of Transportation a lowered speed limit on that section of the road, and MDT will be there with us on that day. So we have the Department of Public Service Regulation, just a notice, and this is for Billings Collision Repair and Blair Transfer and Storage. And again, copies were provided to Franklin in your mailbox. We also have the Montana Department of Environmental Quality, and this is for wastewater discharge permits in Gillette, M&K Oil Company, Gillette, Wyoming, and the Wright Creek Water Disposal Facility for Powder River Company. Must have some interest in Montana. And this came up last week, but we didn't address it. This is Mr. Hilliard Thornton, and he got floodplain permit authority to build a barn on his property. And so that's just a notice to the commissioners. That went through the floodplain coordinator. And last but not least, we have a quote here from CAP Paving Inc., and it's just a preliminary quote, nothing more at this point, but the Sheriff's Department approached Mike Myers, our maintenance supervisor, about the parking lot in the back. They go to the hospital, get food for the inmates, bring it across to the detention center. What they find is this time of year everything's fine, but in the winter it's icy. And they are asking for blacktop because that will melt fastest and will hopefully protect any deputies from, or detention officers from falling and becoming a safety issue. Also, citizens around the courthouse have complained for years that it's awfully dusty and have been asking us to pave it. So Mike did go ahead and get a quote and brought it forward. And do you have any thoughts on that, Franklin?
Oh, I know that, I'm all for putting some asphalt back there, so, I'm not happy with that price there. Of course, we get more prices, all right, but that quote's, I feel, awful high.
It's a starting point to give us an idea what we'd be looking at. Of course, it could be higher or lower.
So I'm for getting that taken care of. I know, because I've experienced it.
Would you like to have Mike go ahead and follow the process of putting out an RFP for that, advertising for it, or what are your thoughts?
Oh, definitely before we do anything more, does it say here that, okay, it says 20,000 square feet.
And Sheriff, do you have any comments about the back parking lot here?
Other than even where we park our patrol cars and have to come in the office in the winter, it is nothing but a sheet of ice. And I've had workers' comp claims because of it.
Okay, how many, do you know? Off the top of your head, that's not.
Off the top of my head, past years, I think I've had 3 or 4, I think. But others have fallen and not filed a claim. You know, whether they went through with their claims or not, they asked for the paperwork. You know, and rightfully so.
Sure.
It's impossible to keep that off of there because you can't shovel dirt. I mean, you can to a certain degree, but as soon as it melts, it turns into nothing but a sheet of ice.
And one of the things Mike mentioned is it's actually cupped back there, so the water collects where people are walking because it's cupped. So regardless, we'd have to address the slope for the parking lot so that there's decent runoff. But if you don't have any complaints, we'll ask Mike to pursue this. It doesn't mean we're obligated to it, but we can find out what we're
Right,
looking
and
at.
I think we can cut down a lot on that by, the city and the county can come in there and get it prepared.
That's something we wouldn't necessarily tell the city to do, but we have worked with them
Well-
very well in
well, I
the
know,
past, and we could certainly
And
ask
earlier
them.
that they didn't even just the concrete, I mean, it isn't gonna take too long to get it prepared, and then after they do they'll set their own, grades and everything for that, you know. But the-
Dana can take away the waste,
Right, right.
materials, he's done that in the past.
And
That's
then
all.
I would have Mike talk to the city about that, because I believe that is an alleyway.
And he has been working
Yeah.
with Tim
Yeah.
already, so, yeah, that's definitely a part of it, because it is theirs.
But I think that can be cut probably in half anyway. That's just a quick guess, but.
Okay, we'll go ahead and have him pursue that. John, was that a handout that I saw?
Yeah, I was wanting to know what the figure is.
It's
Oh,
50
thank you, 56,861.75, and this is with an East Helena company called CAP Paving.
And there's also
Yes.
in that area that the sheriff's department was planning on putting refrigeration units or stuff in the back for lunch or dinner for the inmates. Is
Yeah.
that gonna interfere with that?
No, that went to John, I think, that, I guess I'll back up a little bit, if that goes with the prison delivery stuff, that slab would be right next to that generator building that's there,
Okay.
and all the rest is here would be,
How about the downspouts from off the roof? Are they running out on the parking lot or are they contained in a drainage?
these,
Some of them, well, the one right in the middle feeds down by the back door. But it's, I mean, the majority of it goes off on the east end, I believe.
and that one downspout might have to be directed so you could
Yeah.
get over to that,
Yeah, and
the
we
storm
talked
sewer.
about that.
No. A lot of the places here along the alleys, they get slick and the biggest problem is what runs off the roofs. And that sets up the whole aspects. I know, or anybody that, in this town, that tries to rely on the drains to go down the drain, it don't go very far.
Judy?
Could you repeat the figure again for the cost?
Yeah, it's not a quote, it was just a starting point, but 56,861.75.
Thank you.
Any other comment? We can open it up for public comment for 5 minutes until lunch if anyone has anything. And we'll have official public comment at the end of the meeting today around 3:15. Any public comment? All right, how about we recess for lunch? Did you have anything?
I'm waiting for the official one. I'm gonna bring you that, on that gal that's swinging. The
Thank
Department
you.
of Justice.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
gonna come back at 3:15, make sure I was here at 3:15. Delivering you his copy of it.
Fantastic, that's exciting. All right, we're recessed for lunch. Everyone have a great meal, and we'll see you at 1:30, I hope.